She said recording in progress. That means we're good to go. Okay. So you probably already know me if you're here. But if not, let me just give you a quick intro. So my name is Jamie. Obviously, I work as a medium and a spiritual development teacher. I give readings, but I used to be a classroom teacher. And so when the trajectory of my career completely changed, when this all kind of happened for me, I won't say to me, for me. That was something that was on my heart. And so I carried it with me teaching. I've always been the type where, like, if I get really into something and I learn a lot about it, I like to share that with others, even if it's, something like just a fun hobby or whatever. So clearly, once I got my mediumship down, teaching it was like the path that I had to go. There was like no question about it. And I heard it loud and clear from spirit. It's not just that you are reading, it's that you're teaching people how to do it too. Because I think there's something really important about everybody being able to connect, everybody who wants to, being able to connect to these abilities within yourself, because it's not just about talking to dead people. It's about your own intuition, your own spirit guides, your own past loved ones. Yeah, there's just so much that you can do with understanding how your psychic senses work a little bit better. And I think that the clairs are like one of the most misunderstood things about sort of these psychic gifts, psychic experiences, how they work. And so I wanted to kind of demystify it a little bit. I know for me, there are certain things that I'm going to share with you in this workshop tonight that were really like kind of game changers for me. Once I realized that, I was like, wow. So that's one of the reasons that I want to teach that. And before we do, what I'd really like to ask everybody to do is to kind of take a second and let's all just really like connect into ourselves. What I always like to do is put my feet firmly on the ground, because it's a nice grounded stance, flat feet on the ground. We want to connect our energy down into the earth, okay? Because think of it like a radio, right? If you had a radio in your house that turned on and off whenever it felt like it and tuned into whatever station it wanted to, that'd be a little disconcerting, a little discombobulating, right? Grounding your energy is sort of like the tether that keeps you connected to the earth, that allows you to be able to go up through your chakras and out your crown in the direction of spirit. So that when we use the radio analogy, it's like tuning the dial to what you want to listen to and not just letting it do whatever it wants. Okay. So grounding your energy in terms of getting clearer psychic information is really important. So what I want to have us start by doing is I like to rub my hands together. For me, it's sort of a way to like collect my energy. And I like to do it. And then I usually find myself bringing my hands here at my heart space. You don't have to do it. Do what works for you. This is all about what works for you. But if you're taking this, might as well try my way, right? Okay, so rub your hands together, get your energy going. And then just allow it to sit here and take a few deep breaths and sort of settle yourself. I'm not going to say anything for a minute. Just take some deep breaths, settle yourself, connect into your own body, breathe, slow down your breathing. Just sort of ground and center your energy. And when you feel ready, what I'd like you to try to do in your mind, you can say it however you want. Don't feel like you need to be fancy or special about it. In your mind, take a moment and call on your spirit guides or whatever it is that you identify with as, the beings that are around you that support you, higher power. Call on your spirit guides. I always say spirit guides of the highest truth and compassion, or spirit guides of my highest good, because I want to make sure we eliminate anything that might not be that. Just call on them and ask them to be with you. Ask them to join you for this session tonight. Set your intentions that they're going to help you activate your clairs tonight, going forward, not just here while we have this, but going forward, that your clairs will be sort of lit up and ready to go. And ask them to help you stay open so that you can continue to do this work after just tonight. You might already even be starting to sort of feel some things. If that's something that you do regularly, you might have some sensations already if you sort of chat with your spirit guides or your higher powers on a regular basis. For me, I get the chills or I get a little bit lightheaded, but it's something that I do all the time, so I'm used to it. Okay, are we good? Okay. So, does everyone have a beverage?
Yes.
Did you see that in my email? All right, here's what I want to do. We are going to start with activating our real human physical senses. Okay. And the reason that we want to do that is because, number one, of what I said before, it's actually very grounding, right? Like this is all stuff that we're experiencing here on Earth. This is a very earthly thing. And when you're feeling frazzled and ungrounded, taking a moment to be really, really mindful in that moment and go through each of your senses, that's a really good way to like smooth out anxiety. That's a really good grounding technique in general because it connects you to your body and your earthly experience. So that's one benefit of it. But it also, your psychic senses and your real human senses are very tightly linked. And so you may find that before you go to do this practice work and before you start doing this stuff, it's beneficial to you to take a moment to really activate your real senses, to take stock of some things that are actually around you, even if it's just in a moment of meditation like that, where you just, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? All that. So I always encourage everybody to do that. So we're going to do that with our drink now. So, but I want you not just, I don't want you to just like, it's cold, it's bubbly, or it's warm, or it's whatever. Okay. I want you to sit and really sort of think about it in vivid details, in ways that you would never think of your drink in an ordinary situation, right? So let's start with, how about let's start with what we see, like without touching it, okay? If you look at your drink, like I'll do mine first as an example. You can do your own. You don't have to say it out loud, you know. Okay, what do you see? For me, I noticed it's hot out, so my ice all melted like immediately. I put lots of ice in there. Now there's none left. I can see the condensation is dripping down the side of it from where the ice melted. I can see, I already know this about it, right? So some things you may just know, but I already knew that it was going to drip, so I put something underneath it, right? So you can think about some things you already know. Just to observe it, like, oh, I really like this glass that it's in. I always like to drink out of mason jars, so I like chose a mason jar on purpose. So think about the cup, observe the cup. Why do you like that cup? What made you choose that cup? What made you choose that drink? Break it down into the really specific details. And then I want you to see, I mean, this is kind of crazy if it's just a drink, but it might make sound, right? If you have ice in it, it might clink when you stir it. If it is carbonated, like mine is seltzer. So, you know, there's not really much for bubbles, but it was bubbling before the ice melted and it went flat. Pay attention if there's anything that you can hear. Take a moment and touch it. And really like allow yourself to be immersed in it. I know it feels so silly because it's like something that you see and do and are part of every day, right? But really take a minute to be kind of immersed in it. Okay, putting your hands on it. How does it feel? Like it feels, for me, mine feels cold and mine feels wet and it feels firm because it's in this nice sturdy mason jar. It fills my hands, right? Like it's a big cup, so that's part of it. How does it smell? Amelia smells good. I could tell by her face. How does it taste? And I want you not just to pay attention to the way that it tastes when you take a drink, but pay attention to the way that it feels inside your mouth too, what the difference is, because that's another sensory thing. And I even want you to consider the feelings that you associate with this drink. How does it make you feel? Why did you choose this tonight? What feelings emotionally, or I guess even physically, does it invoke in you? Because it could, feelings can evoke a physical sensation too, right? Like cup of coffee, like a warm hug, something like that, Okay. Everyone good? You got it? Now what you are going to do is you're going to close your eyes. You're going to take 3 breaths. And then you are going to attempt in your mind, in your imagination, to recreate it without touching it, without looking at it, without tasting it, without anything. I want you to try in your imagination to make it as vivid as possible, as it just was physically in front of you. Try to remember exactly what it tastes like. Try to remember exactly how it smelled. Try to remember exactly how it felt in your hands and the sensations that you had. Congratulations, you used your Claire's workshop over. Just kidding. That's the whole thing. I'm just kidding. Okay, did anybody feel like that was a little bit tricky imagining it? Did anybody feel like that was kind of challenging to imagine or to remember what it felt like without actually drinking it or touching it? Or if you often, yeah. So sometimes people will say that that the Claire's are like it can be a little bit tricky for them. I have one friend who says she doesn't visualize things like at all. They just don't go through her head. And to that, I say, number one, that's okay, because there are other senses, right? We don't have, if there's one that we're weak, it's okay. We can work with the other ones that are stronger, but also knowing that is a good way to sort of work on strengthening it, right? So what we're going to be doing tonight is I'm going to go through what the Claire's are with you, what they're not. And we are going to do like a few little activities, like fun little sort of practice things or games or whatever you want to call it for you to do, just sort of connect down into it. And then I'm going to send you an email on Saturday that has the recording of this, but also there'll be like a little packet for you to do for homework to continue to practice it, as well as a guided meditation to continue to practice it on your own. Because there are a couple of things that are really important for me before we really get into what it is. That I want you to understand. Number one, I'll probably repeat this because it's important. Number one, this is a practice, okay? Like anything else. Basically, everything I teach is that way. My students are like, this is not something that you're going to walk away from this workshop. You should hopefully walk away from the workshop and go, oh my God, I didn't know that. That's so interesting. That's new information. Wow. But I don't think that anybody's going to walk away from the workshop and suddenly be like receiving tons of information everywhere they go all the time, right? That's not how it works. It's more of a thing that we have to practice. It's a muscle we have to stretch and flex. And so if that was challenging for you, then my encouragement is to work on it, a little bit more here and there. And we're going to talk about some ways that you can practice strengthening it. One thing that I really want to say is to be willing when you're doing this to suspend your disbelief and to allow your imagination to take over. People, when they practice their Claire's, they are often concerned that they're just making it up. So it holds them back because they think, I couldn't possibly have this. I'm just making it up. It's just, I'm dreaming about it in my mind. I'm imagining it. And the reality is, as you could see from your drink or whatever, it's all connected. It all comes from the same place. So sometimes what happens is we think that we're allowing our imagination to make it up and to create it, but it's actually not. It's that we're receiving it. It's not actually our imagination. We're not actually making it up. We're receiving the information, and we're just so trained, and it's just like our natural response to want to doubt ourselves because it's crazy, right? It feels weird. It's like nuts. So it's our natural thing to want to kind of doubt ourselves a little bit. And so a lot of people shy away from it because they think they're just making it up. And I see this all the time with my students, especially in the practice after this lesson. They're all convinced that they're making this up. And then we get to the homework that goes with it. And they're like, how did I know that? And I'm like, because you practiced. So the clairs can really help you sort of clarify that, but you're going to have to continue to practice it. And you're going to have to be willing to like trust yourself and to go with it, because there's not going to be anybody there with you when you're practicing it, you know, unless you have a friend or a volunteer to tell you right or wrong. You know, you have to really be willing to like just allow it to flow and not fight yourself so hard that you block it. Okay. Does everyone agree to that? Thank you. Okay. So the one thing that I want you to understand from when we did that exercise is basically how subtle it can be, okay? Oftentimes when we talk about the clairs, I think we think it's going to be this big, like crazy event, right? Like I see a ghost in front of me in my room. That's clairvoyance. And sometimes it's incredibly subtle. And sometimes it's incredibly hard to tell the difference between your thought and this actual clair that's coming in. So remember that it can be really subtle, and that doesn't mean that it's wrong or that you're making it up. And we're going to go through some examples. But when I say subtle, sometimes it's like what you were doing with your imagination. Sometimes it's like the memory of something or the impression of something. Like with food, I often say it's almost like I'm not tasting physically that thing. It's more like, you know, when you crave something really bad, so bad you can almost taste it. That's kind of how it is. It's subtle like that. It's an impression of it. Okay. So what we're going to start with is the difference between subjective versus objective clairs. Now this goes for all the clairs. We're just talking about the way that it appears to us. So objective is outside of ourselves. For example, like I just said, seeing ghosts. That's something I've done my whole life. I've seen ghosts outside of my body. You know, once I got a handle on my mediumship, I actually physically see them less objectively. Another thing that's happened to me my entire life is I've always had people that call my name. I hear someone calling my name. As a kid, it was usually an adult voice that would scare me, like I thought I was in trouble from my parents and be like, what I do? You know, like Jamie, like a firm way they would say my voice. Since I've had kids, sometimes I hear mama and I'll go and I'll check and my kids will be sound asleep. But it feels to me like I'm actually hearing it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, did you hear that too? It's a real sound that I hear, but nobody else hears it. That's objective clairaudience or objective clairvoyance, where you're seeing the ghost in front of you. I will say that those are less common, but that's the way that they portray it everywhere in the movies, the media, on the ghost hunting shows. That's the way they portray it. It's not real unless you're seeing it outside your body or hearing it or having these wild experiences. And when I'm telling you, man, when I found out that you could communicate with spirit internally, everything changed for me. I had no idea. I thought that seeing all of these ghosts, I thought these ghosts were just showing up in my life because I was open to it, because they knew I wasn't afraid of them, because I was just in the right place or the right time. The reality of that is they were showing up physically in my environment because they'd been trying to communicate with me internally for some time, and I was not listening. The internal stuff is much more subtle, and it usually comes first. And by the time you're seeing ghosts, it's because they're screaming at you. Okay. So focus, I would say more, we're going to focus more tonight on the subjective, the internal stuff. Okay. Now, some places that you'll see, like if you were to look it up online, which I would encourage you to do, go through and continue to do your research. You know what I mean? If you look it up online, I've seen some places that say there are only 4 clairs. I don't agree with that. I've seen one that I think had it categorized into as many as 10 clairs. To me, that's too many. When I look at them, when I looked at that list of 10, I was like, that's the same as that. Why do you have to have 2? You know what I mean? They're like very subtle. Like let's just keep it all under one. So tonight we're going to go through 6 clairs. And I'm going to start right now by telling you a little bit about what they are. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about this evening is claircognizance. Now, this is your psychic knowing. You don't know how you know, you just know. It's an awareness. It's a cognition. Now, here's one thing I want to say about this one. A lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, they seem to think that this is their strongest clair. They seem to think that this is the one they have the biggest handle on, that they're claircognizant. I don't know how I know it. I just know it. And what I'm finding happens is when you really break it down, lots of times it's actually not claircognizance, it's the other ones, but they don't realize that's how they're receiving it. Does that make sense? So maybe they're hearing things, but they think it's their own internal thought. So they say they just know. Maybe they're seeing visions in their mind's eye, but they think it's just in their own head. So I don't know. I just know. I don't know. So keep that in mind as you're going through this. Kind of take that one with a little bit of grain of salt. And it doesn't, at the end of the day, let's be honest, it really doesn't matter like which clair, outside of this workshop, which clair is which and where it's coming from, as long as you're getting it. But if you want to work on strengthening the ones that are more weak for you, then that's something you have to keep in mind. So just keep that in mind when you're working on your claircognizance, is that sometimes it actually is something else, but we don't know what else it is. So we just label it as claircognizance because that seems to make the most sense or be the easiest. Have you ever had a situation where you were like, I knew I should not have done that? Oof. Yeah, that's claircognizance. Whoops, you ignored it, but that's what that was. When you knew you shouldn't have done it and you did it anyway, that was your claircognizance trying to tell you. Okay. And in terms of subjective or objective, I mean, there really is no like objective, like I just knew it outside myself. That's more of an internal one. So let's move on to clairvoyance, because this is the shiny one that I feel like most people want, right? Like I see visions. It's fun. That term is true. That's what people mean when they say that, but I'm very clairvoyant and I personally feel as though visions, even though I say that, I do say that, it's a little dramatic for what clairvoyance actually really is. They're not like, like in the movies or a TV show where it's like they freeze and then this whole thing, they're transported somewhere else and you see their eyes like swirl and this whole thing comes in front of them and they're like stuck in this crazy vision, right? It's not really like that. Sometimes it's incredibly subtle. Sometimes it's fleeting. Sometimes it's an image that swoops over you. So the objective obviously would be like seeing a ghost or seeing orbs of light, or maybe this is a true story. This really happens to me sometimes. When I hike, you guys, if you know me, you know I hike a lot with my kids or whoever. When I hike, I get very like clairvoyant, clairaudient. I swear the woods talk to me like I'm a lunatic. Sometimes I will see stuff in the woods that's not really there, and it's up on the trail ahead of us, like a mirage, like I don't know if it's a fairy connection or what, but like flowers or like crazy things that are like not really there. And I was walking with my friend Laura recently. We were walking down the path and I was like, oh my God, look at that. And she was like, what? I don't see anything. And as we got closer, I was like, never mind, it wasn't real. And I felt like a lunatic. But it's, in the woods, I'll see like flowers and things like that. So that's objective because I'm really seeing, I really think it's there until I get closer and I realize it wasn't. I know you guys won't think I'm crazy, right? But that's the one that I think people are afraid of because they're like, I'm not saying that out loud. I hear voices, I see things. I'm not saying that out loud. People will think I'm nuts. Subjective is usually more the way that it goes with clairvoyance. And so that is like, we call it seeing something in your mind's eye, right? It's like seeing a movie play across the screen of your mind. But it comes to sort of different degrees. For some people, it's, or in some situations, right? It's as subtle as like a memory, right? If you right now close your eyes and take a second and picture a family holiday at your house, whatever holiday it is. Picture when you get together with your family, just picture what it's like. Just close your eyes, take a second and picture. I know we haven't had many in a while, right? Holidays have not been great the last couple of years, but just take a second and just in your mind, like picture your family. What does your family look like? What do your family events look like? How do you decorate? Things like that. That's, you know, the way that a memory will pull forward in your mind is very similar to the way that clairvoyance works. It's just something that you think with visuals. Sometimes what I get, and this I think is probably really, really common, seems to be for my students too, especially when we're talking about mediumship, but in general. Sometimes what I get is I'm seeing what's really in front of me with my real eyes and in my mind. But in my mind, there's something else there as well. So like one time I was at a dance studio and I could see an older gentleman watching his granddaughter through the window, watching her dance. But really, that was real in front of me. In my mind's eye, I saw an older woman in spirit standing behind him. So she was there with him watching the granddaughter. Come to find out, the girl's grandmother had just died. So that's what that was. Just side note, not really part of the workshop, but oftentimes when I say that, when I can tell they're in spirit because they usually look a little different to me. Maybe a little see-through, maybe a little sheer. They just don't look like, even in my mind's eye, right? Like in my mind's eye, he looks like a solid form human who's sitting there in his wheelchair, and she looked a little less solid, less structured. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. Like I could just tell that she's not a regular human, right? So that's how I would see it. It's like I'm seeing these people actually standing in front of me. Hi, Lisa. I'm seeing these people actually standing in front of me, but in my mind's eye, I'm seeing also the dead grandmother standing there too. And that happens to me a lot in real life. Like I'll see things the way that they are, but then I'll see the additional spirit information. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. Sometimes, especially if I'm in a reading, right? Until I deliver that piece of information, until it makes sense to the person who it's intended for. So if you're doing this work for yourself, it would be until it makes sense for you. If you're giving a reading, it would be until it makes sense for the person. Sometimes until that person can take it or until it makes sense, I'll see it over and over again, like a loop. They'll just show me over and over again. So yesterday I was doing a reading where the spirit kept showing me, he was like tossing his daughters in the air. And I was like, I'll just walk you through the conversation. I was like, did your dad used to like toss you in the air? And she's like, yeah, yeah. Like, yes, but it wasn't totally resonating. And I was like, and would your mom be like totally freaked out and be careful? And she's like, yeah, kind of. And I said, did you guys spend a lot of time outdoors? Because then I'm seeing the same scene, but he's pointing out now how tan he is. Like I can see, I'm seeing the same thing over and over again, but now spirit is making me really observe his skin and how tan he is. Like it's kind of just sticking out to me when I'm seeing this scene over and over in my mind. And she says, yeah, we did. And then now I'm seeing splashing all of a sudden. I said, would he always throw you in the pool? And she was like, yeah, we had a pool. That's where we always were when we were outside. He would throw us in. I was like, and is that when your mom? Yes, my mom didn't swim. She was always so nervous about it. There you go. So does that make sense to you? Like I wasn't getting it. So he kept showing it to me and was like, woman, you better get this. I got to relay this information. And kept showing to me over and over again until I could make it make sense. You can tell usually, Lisa will know this. You can tell usually when I'm engaging my clairvoyance because I make quite the face, right? I'm like, because I'm watching what's happening in here. Yeah. I'm out here somewhere. And this, if I'm like this, it's because I'm listening. They stand here for me, so I'm listening. And I don't know why. I think it's just an energetic thing. You don't really need to stare. You don't really need to turn your head. I think it's just our human senses, right? I told you it's all very closely tied. It's all in the same wheelhouse: imagination, physical senses, and psychic senses. Okay. Let's talk now a little bit about, is everyone good on this? Am I going at an okay pace? Okay. Let's talk a little bit now about clairaudience. Clairaudience is your psychic hearing. And I have to tell you that I personally think that this is the trickiest one for people to feel confident in. I think it's probably the most common clair. I think it's probably what people have the most, but I think it's the hardest one to feel confident in. And that's because it can be really challenging, especially when we're talking about your own loved ones, your own spirit guides, to tell the difference between the voices. Which is why I often tell my students for mediumship that it actually benefits you to practice on strangers because you don't have that attachment there. I know what she would sound like. I know what I would want her to say. So I must just be making it up because it's wishful thinking. Similarly, your spirit guides, your own angels, your own loved ones are around you all the time. So their energy feels very familiar to you. Their voice feels very familiar to you. Your spirit guides especially might be hard to distinguish the voice from because they talk to you all the time. And they probably talk to you a lot like you talk, your regular primary ones that are a part of your life, you know, because they've been with you since before you were born. You're attached like that. You know what they sound like, whether you know it or not. It's just this very familiar, comfortable, normal presence. So that it's hard sometimes to tell the difference between spirit guides and like, do I just want this to be what my spirit guide says? Am I making this up? Okay, so objectively, right? I'm talking about subjectively. Objectively, it's hearing things that are not there, right? So aside just from hearing people call your name, which I still to this day get all the time, usually it happens when I am like really, really tired, really run down, and my boundaries might not be as strong as they should be, or if I'm like drinking. I'll be honest. You know, because the boundaries, it lowers your boundaries, right? And your inhibitions. That's why I actually don't encourage you to practice any of this if you've been drinking, including meditation, especially if you're a beginner. Tonight will be fine or whatever. I don't care if you're drinking tonight, but you know what I mean? Like if you're going to be like doing a reading, I don't encourage it because, you know, sometimes it's just, if you're having a glass or whatever, but if you're like drunk, you don't have the ability to like withhold your boundaries and discern from any lower vibrating energies. So this is, and a lot of people experience, a lot of people will experience objective clairaudience in familiar ways. So I actually think, you know, when people say like phantom phone rings or phantom baby cries or things like that, how many moms have heard their kids cry when they were in the shower? But they were not crying, happily engaged in something else. You just are nuts, right? I think that's part clairaudience, objective clairaudience. Because I think you're kind of, you know, your own worries and fears kind of can manifest itself in like an outside, especially when we're talking about objective clairs are typically like, you're not doing something right, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like your energy is a little off if you're doing it objectively. It's usually the intentional stuff is usually more subjective, not always. And I'll give you some examples of not always later, but, so yeah. And then again, similarly, this is one of the ones that people feel a lot of shame around talking about, especially when it's objective, right? Because you don't want to tell anybody that you hear voices. They'll institutionalize you. There's diagnoses for that. I used to work in the mental health field, right? So I've seen people, and I look back and I wonder, I'm like, is she really schizophrenic or is she just psychic AF and like special needs? So she can't say that this is what's happening to me, you know? So I think that there's kind of a fine line with that, which is why I tend to focus more on the internal. So we'll talk about that. Subjectively, it can seem a lot like your own thought, okay? Especially if it's the familiar spirit, like we just talked about. Sometimes it might even just be like a psychic predictive thing. Like for me, what happens a lot is I'll be watching a movie or a show and I will hear the next line in my head like 2 seconds before they say it. And it's annoying to me because it's not soon enough for me to say it out loud and impress people. it's just like a second before they say it, like I knew he was going to say that, or I knew that was going to happen. So I get that a lot. Also, sometimes when my boundaries are low, I will be able to internally, but I'll be able to sort of hear conversations that I shouldn't be privy to. My neighbors fighting, something like that. I'm hearing their fight in my head. And so that's when I know, boundaries. Nope. Because I'm really big on consent, and like, we don't read for people unless, they requested it. And I definitely don't want to hear my neighbors fight. So that's when I'm like, my boundaries are not great right now, right? I need to shut it down. When it's your own, or when it's like a divine inspiration, it often feels sudden, like insight that came out of nowhere, and assured, if that makes sense. It feels solid, right? So like maybe you're cooking dinner and you get an idea out of nowhere and you're like, I better write that down. That's kind of the feeling that you're like your clairvoyance comes in as. Clairaudience, I'm sorry. Usually it's like those divine thoughts, that divine inspiration. That's usually a clairaudient thing. Or when you're about to do something and you stop dead in your tracks because you heard a voice that was like, don't do that. Okay. Okay, I won't do that. See, and that's the difference between doing stuff that you shouldn't, we've all been there where we've been like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. And you do it. When we're talking about with others, you have to really get used to not only just the subtleties of the subjective clairaudience, but another way to help you distinguish the difference between whether it's theirs or your own is to get used to sort of the subtle shifts in the energy that are around you. Because if you're going to use this to connect with spirits or to psychically to connect with another person, like a tarot reading or something like that, you have to start to get used to the subtle shifts in energy, right? So maybe when we're talking about clairaudience, maybe I'll talk with an inflection or in a tone that's not natural to me. Maybe the cadence or the way that you're moving your hands is not your own. That's another good way to tell that these thoughts are sort of coming outside of yourself. Maybe they're not things that you'd say. They're not words you would ever choose to use. That's a good way that I can tell. And I have tons of readings where people are like, I'll say something that I'll be reluctant to say because it's not something I would normally say. And the person is like, yep, sounds like him. Okay. I say something almost kind of like that I would personally be like offended to have to say. And I'm like, I'm so sorry to say this, but I'm just repeating it, and they're like, yep, that's exactly what they'd say. I did one reading for somebody where the mom just kept like saying the F word at me. And I was like, when I relayed the message, I said I think I said what the heck, or what the hell or something. And the girl was like, she did not say that. I know what she really said. You can say it. It's fine. Like she knew just as well as I, it was funny. I'm like, you're right. She did it. Okay. So that was clairaudience. Is that good? Okay. The next one we're going to be working on tonight is clairsentience. Now, this one is one of the ones that people sometimes break down a little further, but I don't personally really like the categories they break it down into. So I just do it as one, clairsentience. So for me, that is psychic feeling, whether it's physical or emotional. Okay. So because it can be really tied together, right? Like our physical feelings, our emotional state can physically impact our body, everything like that. It's all tied together. It doesn't really matter too much. So, one thing I want you to note before I talk too much about this is that if you are using this to practice connecting with deceased spirits, dead people, past loved ones, whatever, you should know that there is one little kind of sometimes tricky caveat to this. And that is that spirit itself in general carries a sort of physical energy that feels different to our Peasley little human bodies. Okay. So oftentimes spirit energy for me and for many, many people, not just me, if there's just a spirit near me or next to me or close in my field, for me, it manifests often in a racing heart rate. Feels like anxiety to me because that's how I experience my anxiety too. My heart will race. So for me, I always associate it with anxiety, but For lots of people, spirit feels like anxiety. For other people, especially when they first start out, just the presence of a spirit will often feel like a wave of emotion, like, well, I'm about to cry, I'm about to burst into tears. And the reason for this is because spirit exists on a much higher vibrational frequency than we do. So they have to raise their vibration up in order, they have to lower their vibration. We have to raise our vibration in order to connect. And so their vibration is much faster than ours is. And so it has a physical impact on our body. We feel it. So our body is like, whoa, there's something weird going on in my energy right now. And so our body physically responds. So when we're talking about clairsentience, just keep that in mind, okay? Especially if you're using it to practice like a reading. That sometimes the physical, I always start, whenever I connect with somebody that's had a heart attack or something like that, that's always the first place I have to start. I have to be like, did they die of a heart attack? Because sometimes my heart will just be racing. And if they say no, then I'm like, all right, let's just move on. Like I'll know it's just me. I can usually tell the difference now, but when I was first starting, it was really hard for me to tell the difference. Okay. And my recommendation for that is to give it a minute to settle in. Okay. Before you decide what you're clairsentiently feeling, give it a minute to settle in and make sure it's not just spirit energy if you're doing a past loved one. Okay, so for me, clairsentience is the one that I am most likely to get objectively. And I don't really like it, but I allow it and I encourage it because it's very useful for me in my job. Now, what I mean by that is this. I often, the second I start the reading, I feel, sometimes it's actually usually while I'm meditating before the reading. I will very first and foremost feel the physical symptoms, whether it was something that person suffered with that was significant in their life, or whether it was the way that they passed. And when I tell you I physically feel it, I mean I really physically feel it. Obviously not to the extent of them, but I will feel like I'm having trouble breathing, even though I can tell I'm getting enough oxygen. I'll be like, like I feel like I'm not, and I feel like I'm having trouble breathing. My heart will literally physically race. I've done people with breast cancer who like my chest has hurt. Like I've had soreness. Oftentimes if someone was bedridden, I will feel a lot of stiffness. I'll feel like I immediately want to stretch or twist. If someone was kept comfortable while they were like put to sleep, kept comfortable to be sleeping, I'll often feel like usually it's because they were on morphine or something like that. I'll feel like a wave of exhaustion, like I'm suddenly going to fall asleep. So I really physically feel it. And the reason that I allow it is because it's so beneficial and so useful to me, even though I hate it. It's my least favorite part about what I do. But usually once I deliver that, like I said before, it goes away. And I can move on to some other elements of the reading. So for me, this is the one that I'm most likely to get objectively. And I want to tell you, it's not, like I said, it's not as strong as it would be in real life, but it really is physically there. Sorry, I just was reading my list of examples, which I already gave you already. Okay, so subjectively, it can really just be, it's more like the impression of it, okay? So if I say in a meditation, hint, hint, maybe we'll do this. If I say in a meditation, to ask your spirit guide to reach out and touch you, you're not going to feel them go, hello, I'm here, I'm right behind. You're not going to like, hello. You're not likely, it's possible, but you're not likely to physically feel them touching you. What you're more likely to feel is maybe chills, a chill up your spine, goosebumps down your arm, just sort of the sensation that they're there. Maybe in your mind's eye, you see a hand on your shoulder and you feel there. Maybe you don't feel a hand, but maybe you feel warmth or you feel a tingle. And also it can just be sort of the like, the impression of that hand there. So when I seek to connect with my grandmother, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll call on her while I'm driving, and I'll put my hand out like this, and I can almost feel her holding my hand. It's like it's not really there, but it's close. It's like this. It's a very strong impression of it. And the more you work on this stuff, the more you practice it, the more you do it, the stronger those impressions will get for you. Not always. Sometimes it has to do with how strong the spirit is, if it's a spirit that we're talking about, but it'll get stronger for you usually the more you practice it. That's why I say keep practicing, keep practicing. One of the biggest benefits for me connecting with the physical, now we talk about the physical. Now, actually, let's talk about the emotional. One of the biggest benefits for me in working on my subjective emotional clairs, my emotional feelings, is in my real life and in readings, I practice labeling my emotions and my feelings really, really specifically. And I've even taken to trying to teach my kids the same thing. So I don't say I'm mad. I say I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. I'm, whatever, like break it down into what the root cause of that feeling is. What is the base feeling behind the emotion that you're having right now? Is it really anger, or are you feeling let down? You know what I mean? And working on identifying that stuff in your real life will help it become much, much easier for you, because when that feeling comes up in a clairsentient way, you can sit with it for a second and go, oh, I feel so frustrated. Oh my God, I feel so frustrated right now. And then that will make sense to the person you're doing it to, or to yourself. You can feel sort of the feelings for yourself before they come up for you. And you can realize, like, okay, this is a way that I could feel. Either I don't want to feel that. Now let me try and change situations to avoid it. Or this is a way that I could feel. Let me go down that path because I want to feel that way. That's a good thing to feel. That's actually, clairsentience is sort of part of manifestation, right? When we talk about the law of attraction, we talk about, you have to feel. I always tell people to like feel what it's like to really have that thing. Imagine deeply what it's like to be holding that thing you want in your hands. Or if it's not a physical thing, imagine what your life would be like when you have that thing and how it would change your life, and really just feel the emotions that are attached to it. Because that's the place then that you manifest it from. That's the energy that the universe responds to. So the more you can feel it in your imagination, the more the universe is going to be able to give it to you, because they know that you have that deep connection with your feeling. Okay. Okay. And then, so for the last one, I'm going to do one more section where we're going to talk about two clairs, actually. And then I'm going to give you a few notes. I was going to say we'll do a quick little break and then play some activities. But if we go straight through, we maybe could get out a little. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what you think. Okay. So the last one that I'm going to do for you guys is clairalience and clairgustance. And when I send you the stuff, I'll have these typed out. So if you're like, how do I spell that? It's fine. It doesn't matter. Just do what you want. Clairalience is psychic smell. Clairgustance is psychic taste. And certainly objectively, these are popular spirit signs. Okay. Like smells are a really common one. Sometimes people definitely smell things outside of themselves that aren't really there. That's not abnormal. Spirit will often send signs in that way. Cigarette smoke is a common one, right? People will smell cigarette smoke even when it's not there. Sometimes that's a really popular one. For me, I know that my grandfather's around often because I'll smell tomato plants, the green tomato plant. My grandmother, I'll tell you this story because it's cute and it's an example of clairalience. My daughter had a bath, and she used to, when she was little, she always used to want to dance with me. So I would hold her and we would kind of rock back and forth. I put my head on hers and burst into tears because her hair smelled just like my grandmother's shampoo. And we don't have it. We haven't used it. We've never used it. Don't own it. Neutrogena, the clear little, right? The clear little Neutrogena. And I could smell her so, it was right after she died. And I could smell her so strongly that I was like, sobbing with my baby, right? Like that's a way that Claire Alliance can show up for you. When we talk about subjectively, the best way that I can describe it is like what I said before. It's like when you get a really intense craving for something and you just can't get it out of your mind, you can practically taste it. It's right there. You can practically smell it. It's right there. It's like that feeling of it being almost on the tip of your tongue. It's like it's almost real. It's very close to real. And sometimes it can be more vivid than other times. And sometimes it's not. But I'm trying to think if I have any more examples that I didn't write down of how that's come up for me. I mean, sometimes I taste or smell things in readings. Coffee is a popular one. Coffee is a popular one that I get a lot of. Yeah. Okay. All right. So does anyone have any questions thus far on those and how they work? You can unmute yourself or you can ask in the type box if you prefer, whatever you want. Just swipe and see how we're doing here. Okay. All right. So let me give you a few notes before we start any sort of activities or anything like that. Sorry, you keep seeing my finger swipe. I'm just trying to land on like a page. I have to use my phone for these because of the way my computer is. And so you have to deal with my finger like this every time you have a phone call with me. Sorry. Okay, so let me give you some notes and some more tips for tapping into these. The number one tip that I can give you is that you have to, at some point, like I kind of hinted at this at the beginning, but you have to at some point come to a place of surrender with this. You have to, and I kind of encourage you to do it when we tapped in before, and I'll encourage you to do it again when we actually start to practice and do like little things. But surrender and trust are like my biggest keywords when we talk about practicing any of our psychic gifts or psychic senses, because you need to just be willing to accept that this is not something that like maybe you're used to, or that this is something that is not really explainable. We don't know why universe have you selected me to be able to hear dead people? I don't know, but I'm going to surrender to it for the benefit of my client in this reading. So before I do every single reading, I say a prayer of surrender, and I vow to trust what they're giving me and to just give what I get, even if it doesn't make any sense to me. So at some point when you're practicing this, you've really got to come to a place of surrender and trust with this. Before you try an activity, set your intention and just go with it. Don't sit there overanalyzing it, worrying about if you're making it up or not. Just be willing for the time that you're practicing to suspend your disbelief and just go with it, because overanalyzing and worrying too much about whether or not you're doing it or if it's real or if it's that, it actually blocks the energy. You get into a much better flow state when you say, I am willing to just surrender to this and let whatever comes come for my benefit, for their benefit, for whoever it's for. You can go back to being a skeptic after. Okay. You can go back to when you finish your practice activity being like, I don't know if that was real. I don't know if I made it all up or not. But while you're doing it, you better still write it down anyway. Even if you think it's baloney, just quiet that voice. Just forget it. Just ignore it. Okay. And I don't necessarily mean tonight. I mean, on your own as well, but also tonight. My second note and tip for you is that you have to, I know I said this already, but you have to practice on your own. Okay. This isn't going to happen to you overnight. Thanks, Amelia. Sorry you had to run. I'll send you the replay. So we are going to practice a little bit tonight, but it's something that you need to continue to practice, okay? Because you're going to be able to be better about distinguishing the subtle differences within each thing, within your own voice and the outside voice. You're not going to have to worry in the future. Once you get more comfortable with this, you're not going to have to sit and worry about which clair it was. Was I hearing that, or was I seeing that, or which clair was that? It doesn't matter. Eventually it doesn't matter. And you don't even have to think about it anymore at a certain point, but it's important. It's important to understand how they work and the mechanics of them so that you can fine tune them. And it also gives you kind of a point to practice, which is what we'll go through later. Remember also, another note, another tip I have for you, please remember that these oftentimes go hand in hand. You may not be experiencing only one clair at a time. You may see something while you are hearing something, while you are smelling something, you know, tomato plants, right? So say, for example, I get the smell of the tomato plant. That's obviously my clairalience. But then maybe that will recall for me what a tomato plant looks like. Or even say, I know it's from my grandfather. So now I'm seeing my grandfather's garden when I was a child. Or maybe I'm seeing myself when I was little gardening with my grandfather. And it's because that's probably what he's sending me. It could be my own memory, right? Or it could be what he's sending me. And it doesn't really matter because it's for me. It's for my benefit. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't, at the end of the day, my point is it doesn't really matter always whether it's a memory or as long as it gets the point across, as long as you're getting that information out, because spirit can send memories and real life messages too. If my grandfather shows me my own memory of me as a child in his garden, that doesn't mean he didn't send it to me. Yes, it's a memory that already existed, but spirit can pick it from your mind. Spirit can pull it out. And I get my own memories often as frames of references when I'm doing a reading for a complete stranger. Just today, something came up where I saw my grandfather, in fact, and I was able to relay that thing about my grandfather to these people, and it made sense for their grandfather. Does that make sense to you? It's because their grandfather saw that in my memory and plucked it out so that I would know to make that connection. Okay. So even if you're having your own thoughts, your own whatever, don't discount it. Write it down anyway. Don't discount it because it very well could come from a source outside of you, even though it feels like it's internal. Okay. That's what we call frame of references. And eventually you're not going to, you know, maybe you'll see water and maybe you'll hear splashing, and then maybe say you smell chlorine, right? And that's how you know, oh, we're talking about a pool, because it's the combination of all these senses together. And eventually you're not going to have to worry about which clair it is. And you're just going to be like, yep. And you just give what you get, and you give the information. Cause especially if you're doing this for other people, they don't care how you got it. It doesn't matter. They just want the news. They want the info, the evidence, the message. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about sort of the mechanics and the technique and all of that stuff before we start any of the activities? Okay. Okay, that's fine. And I will like I said, I'll send out the replay. So we will chat later for anybody that has to go. Okay, so let's start now by doing some little sort of activities. Before we get into the actual activities, I have a few tips for you, and this will be in the workbook as well, some suggestions. But I have a few tips for you on how you guys can continue to practice these on your own. Meditation is like my number one tip. I can't even say that enough. If you're not meditating, figure it out. That sounds harsh, I know, but I actually don't mean it that harshly. I mean, it's really important for you to be able to sit with your own energy and recognize what your own energy feels like in order to be able to tell when different energies have entered your vibration. Okay. And if you're like, I can't sit and meditate because my mind is too busy, I can't get it to be quiet, that's okay. That's not necessarily what meditation is about. I think that's a myth and a nasty little rumor that people somewhere along the lines have spread, that you have to have like a clear mind to meditate. I got ADHD, folks. My mind's never clear. Like a mile a minute. So, million miles a minute, I don't know what. So what I want you to know is if you're not a regular meditator, just start by doing guided meditations on YouTube. Even just start by sitting for 15 minutes a day. Just sit with your own thoughts. Just sit. Start there. Okay. Um, for me, what I like to do, I no longer will usually listen to guided meditations. Other people's voices have started to annoy me now. I think I've reached that point in my meditative practice. So usually I will sit and put music on. And on days when I can't seem to get my mind to quiet, what I will try to do is I get this feeling of sort of just letting the music wash over me and just enjoying the music and just sort of like vibing with the music. And I'll put on like, you know, some sort of spiritual music. Usually it's not usually like Fleetwood Mac or whatever, although whatever works. You just kind of like feel the music. You can try binaural beats because those usually carry an energetic frequency that sort of changes and affects your own. Binaural. So just try sitting and listening to the music and just sort of bathing in it. Also, mediums do this technique that's called sitting in the power. You don't have to be a medium to do it though. And what it is, you know, oftentimes when I talk about it, I just refer to it as meditation, but actually what you should do before you practice these is more like a mini sit in the power. They're not exactly the same thing. There's a little bit of a difference between sitting in the power and meditation. And I could do an entire workshop on that, so I'm not going to go crazy about it. But sitting in the power is basically where you like plug into everything and you just sit in it and you just let it be with you. We're all connected. We're all one. We all come from the same, you know, like we're all in this human experience, this crazy human experience together. I realize that sounds really like kind of an out there concept. How do you plug in? What does that mean? For me, what I'll do is I will sit and I'll set my intention to do it just in my mind. I'll be like, okay, we're doing this now. We're going to sit in the power. We'll do it a little before we start the practices. I'll walk you through it. But I push my energy down into the earth to ground myself. And then for me, what I like to do, figure out your own way to do it. Try it my way if you want, and then figure out your own method. What I like to do is I sort of pull the energy back up, almost like as if I was sucking it with a straw. Like I like to do it with exhales and inhales. I sort of pull the energy back up. And then I just sit in that for a little while, that feeling. For me, it has a very sort of physical feeling. I can really feel the difference. And the more you practice it, the more you'll be able to feel the difference. In my mediumship course, we call it like, you know, it's like an on and an off switch. That's where you can kind of develop your own on and off switch right there in that moment where you sit in the power and you set your intention to connect. So I'll walk you through kind of a little mini one before we start the actual practices. But that's when I say meditate, I mean both. Number one, sitting with your own energy and learning what you feel like to you. And number two, learning to plug in and sit in the power and just kind of connect to everything. Say like, hi, open for business, bring it on. Okay. Automatic writing is a good thing that you can try at home to practice. That's really good, especially for clear audience. So what I encourage people to do with automatic writing is to do a little bit of that meditation first, get yourself in sort of a connected, dialed in state where you feel a little zen. And then I always at the top of my page will write something like I said before, like dearest guides of the highest truth and compassion. I welcome you to write through me now. If there's somebody specific you want to invite, you can. Or if there's something specific you want to ask about, you can. I don't usually, I just say like, hey, what's the good news today? You know, what do you have for me? And then I will just write. And this is the surrender I was talking about. Write down every single thought that crosses your mind. Do not judge it. Don't worry about it. Don't care if you're writing down your grocery list. Just do it. Because, and this again, it's a practice all of its own, right? Like this is one of those things that evolves and gets better over time. But eventually what you'll do is you'll find that, you know, the pace, you can tell that you're like sort of channeling or dialed in. Some of the ways that I can tell is because the pace will pick up for me. I'm writing so fast, my hand can hardly keep up, or maybe my handwriting will even change. My thoughts are like, blah, 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 like faster than I can flow. And then I'll go and I'll read it back after, and I'm like, oh, I would never say that. And it's usually like, if I'm talking to a spirit guide, it's usually more like a flowery language, something like that, like just stuff I wouldn't necessarily say. And sure, my grocery list was in there too. I've even had ones where I was like, this isn't working. I have no idea what I'm doing. Nothing is happening. You know, just do it. Just go with it. Some days you'll have experiences where you'll open it up and be like, oh, and it'll like make you want to cry because it's so profound and beautiful. Maybe not the whole thing, just one line, you know, a couple lines that you underline. Other days, it might be like, well, this doesn't work at all. Other days, maybe the whole thing is really, you're like, wow, that's smart. Okay, spirit, I'll do it. So just keep practicing that. Another thing that you can do to encourage it is chakra work. If you are not familiar with your chakras mean the wheel, right? So when our chakras are all flowing, our energy can go and it can flow the way that it's supposed to. We don't want our chakras to be overactive. We don't want our chakras to be underactive. People always talk about blocked or clear, blocked or not blocked. That's not, in my opinion, that's not the issue. They can be blocked and that can cause an issue, surely, but they can also just be super overactive too, right? So you want to make sure that your chakras are balanced rather than open. That's more of a good place if you're doing chakra work. I want to make sure I say that. But when we're speaking about the clairs, for the purposes of this, let's work on maybe opening our third eye, right? That's clairvoyance. So one of the things, just to give you that example, one of the things when I was first starting out, I wonder if I have it. Here it is. Hold on. This is actually the exact stone. So when I was first starting out, I had this tiny little lapis lazuli, and I used to meditate it with it on my third eye. And sometimes I would even go like this while I was doing it and visualize sort of like pushing it open on the eyelashes. I know I sound like a nut, but it worked. Look at me now. So I would visualize it like that. And now this is a crystal that's really good for clairvoyance, obviously, which is why I chose that one. But also I think just that act, that setting the intention, that very intentional, loving, like, come on, little third eye, let's go, let's activate, like just gentle, loving. So that's your clairvoyance right here, your third eye. Your crown chakra, right on the top of your head, that can be clairvoyance. That is often more the claircognizance, though. That's the knowing, because that right there is your direct link to spirit. That's like the direct up towards heaven, whatever you want to call it, heaven, whatever. That is your like line. So when I work on my crown chakra, often what I'll do, and what a lot of people do, is I'll visualize pulling white light up through the earth and like a beam of light out of the top of my head. That creates a nice clear channel through your whole body. Crystal clear, clean, right out the top of your head. White light is like pure love, crisp, clean energy. I would encourage you guys to use white light for as many visualizations as you can. You could also do, I don't typically do this myself, but a lot of other people will work with violet light. They'll visualize purple light, which makes sense for the crown chakra because that's the color. But the violet light also like represents some other things, but that's really good for like doing that. Again, you could do crystal work, right? Amethyst, any purple stone right there. Let's see, clairaudience is actually your throat chakra. So to work on your clairaudience, your psychic hearing, it actually benefits you to work on your throat chakra. So crystals, that's light blue. Your throat chakra is light blue. So you could meditate with a crystal on your neck, or do something. You can visualize light blue or white light coming out of it. You can sing. That's really, really good for clearing out your throat chakra. Speaking your mind is a good one. And I don't mean that in like you tell them what you think. I mean, like, especially if that's hard for you. If you start making a commitment to yourself to start saying, sorry, I got distracted by one of you who was nodding. If you start saying what's on your heart and your mind, if you start speaking your truth and advocating for yourself, you will notice a difference in your divine guidance, the insight that you are receiving. And that's because you have just eliminated some of those things that were keeping you from doing it. saying your truth, whether it's standing up for yourself or sharing an opinion that might be scary, or just not backing down when someone's like, no, we're going to do it my way. And, you know, many of us will be like, okay, sure. If you're like, you know what? No, I'm not comfortable with that. No, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to talk about this more, right? That right there, boom, throat chakra work. Okay. And there's tons of others you can do too. I like to think, so when I connect with my heart chakra, one thing I will say is that my heart chakra, to me, in my own personal opinion, is my most important of the chakras. I would argue that, like, realistically, it's the most important, not just my opinion. Realistically, it's the most important of all the chakras. That is the energetic center of your body. There's 3 chakras above and 3 chakras below. Your heart is your energetic center. Now, keep in mind, your heart chakra is in the center of your chest. It's not where your actual physical heart is. The color of that is green. So you could work on it by wearing green stones, visualize green light, things like that. I often, before readings, will even picture white light sort of beaming out of my heart. And I like to say it's that my heart's a beacon of light. That's an affirmation that I use for my mediumship practice, because I want them to see the love in my heart and be drawn to it and come to me for that reason. Whether it's a deceased person for a mediumship reading, or whether it's my own, you know, it's like angels and spirit teams that want to help me out, or whether it's attracting soulmate clients that I want to, even, you know, even if it's tarot readings, right? Attracting soulmate clients. If I were to give you a psychic reading, it like attaching us this way. You know, your heart chakra is a really important center of connection for you. And so that, I think, tends to help with all the chakras. It's also really good for the clairsentience, though, specifically. Because not only it's actually, your heart chakra is actually attached to your hands, right? The energy moves through your arms. So like Reiki, you know, that comes out of the heart chakra, really, I think, in my opinion. A lot of stuff comes through your heart chakra when it goes to your hands. So that's the physical feeling. And then the emotional stuff obviously goes through your heart. You want to be really in tune with that when you're connecting with your clairs, especially if it's for yourself. Because, like, sometimes it's hard to distinguish our own emotions. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's harder when we're talking about our own stuff than it is for somebody else. I could look at you and tell you psychically exactly what you're feeling, but, like, can I tell myself always what I'm feeling? No, right? So dialing into your heart is actually another really, really good way to work on that. And then, you know, you have the lower chakra work too, which that's important, but that's important for sort of a different reason. That's important for those grounding reasons that I spoke about before. For me, the lower chakra work is not like I'm such an upper chakra person. I have to physically, like, I have to force myself to do the lower chakra work, because I'm like, woohoo, I'm up here. I'm like in the spirit world all the time. Pisces, medium, whatever, I'm up here. So I have to really, like, force myself to ground my energy multiple times a day. Okay. But that helps. And then, like I said, that makes you the clear channel. That's what makes you tune the dial. So it's really important. Don't neglect those. Okay. Do you guys, I think we decided no on the break, right? Does anybody feel like they need a break desperately? You guys can just go if you do. I don't want anybody to miss anything. Okay. Here's what we are going to do. We're going to do a couple little exercises. It's going to be fun. I don't want anybody to feel intimidated. I'm not going to make you, like, perform or do anything in front of anybody. There will be a couple times where I say, like, does anybody want to share anything? And you can if you want to. Otherwise, you can just do these little practices and these activities sort of on your own privately, and can continue to do them, you know, even after the thing is over. So, but before we do that, we're going to kind of do what we were talking about before. So I want everybody, again, I know we did it at the beginning, put your feet flat on the ground, and we're going to sort of practice like a little mini sitting in the power. So for me, I like to rub my hands together to collect that energy at my heart space. And now as I breathe out, I'm going to visualize pushing my energy down into the earth and connect with the earth. I'm going to drop anything into the earth that feels frantic or frazzled or heavy to me. You can do it a few times. I especially need it after I just was like talking. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now what I'm going to do on my inhales, now that I pushed my energy down through my feet on my inhales, I'm going to visualize pulling energy up from the earth. And I do it in such a way where it's like from the universe, from Mother Nature, from that sort of grander scheme of the earth. So for me, I like to picture it as white light sort of filling my body. With your exhale, if you want, you can have it come out the top of your head, like I had said before, or you can just kind of keep it within you and hold it there, whatever feels right to you. Okay, and we're going to set some intentions, and I'm going to say a little prayer. And if you would like to change the words in your mind to fit more with what works for you and your beliefs, that is fine. So I want to call tonight on our angels, ancestors, loved ones, and guides to help us seek these connections to improve our clairs, our psychic senses, so that we can utilize them both in our everyday life and as a means to help people when they ask for it, when other people have come to us needing our help. Help us to be familiar with these and to learn these and to dial into these and to feel confident in these so that we are able to provide the help that you want us to give, so that we're able to answer the call when people come to us and need us, if that is in our path, so that we're able to improve our own lives by hearing the guidance that is available to us at all times. We understand that this divine guidance is always around us. It's always available to us. We know that you, our angels, ancestors, loved ones, and guides are here all the time. And you want to see us be our highest and best selves. And so we are willing tonight to surrender and to trust. And spirits of the highest good, we ask you tonight, if it serves our clair development, to use our minds, use our hearing, use our bodies to help to deliver these messages. Now just take a second, add your own little whatever it is that you want to add. Okay, so we're going to start with a couple little like simple, fun little things. And then I think we'll go like a little bit more challenging, like as we go. We'll see what happens. All right, so take a moment now. You can still have your eyes closed if you want to. Take a moment now to tune into me. You can picture me in your mind's eye. You can ask your guides to help you tune into me and my senses and my spirits and my loved ones. I give you permission to tap into me psychically. I literally can feel it. It's weird. I give you permission to tap into me psychically or mediumistically or, you know, whatever spirits want to come through. Okay. Consent is big with me. So I want to make sure you all know that you have that from me. And just take a second and imagine sort of tuning into me and blending with me, and you can ask spirit to help you, okay? And so I want you, with your eyes closed now, we're going to work on a little bit of clairvoyance. So we're going to keep our eyes closed for this one, because if you can see things in front of you, that defeats purpose. I would like you to picture the color red. Okay, and as you're picturing the color red, I want you to try to create a shape out of it. And I'm even going to tell you, whatever shape you just created, if it wasn't already, try to turn it into a sphere or a circle or something round. So you have a red, sphere in your mind. And I want you to look at this, and I want you to imagine if there are any, color differences. Is it all solid red, or is there a variety of colors? Is it a perfect sphere, or is it misshapen? Allow it to just take form. Don't judge it. And sorry, my traffic is so loud this time of night. I would like you now to look at it and consider if it has any texture to it. Is there any texture on the surface of it? If you have not already done this, in your mind, see if you can make it spin so that you can see all sides of it. Have it kind of just turn around so that you're seeing the whole thing as like a 3D object. Do you have any sensations? So that's not clairvoyance, but do you have any other sensations that are coming up for you as attached to it? Could be a physical sensation, could be sounds, could be smells, anything at all. Think about what it brings up for you. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. It's fun watching you guys one at a time look at me. Okay. Did anybody get an actual physical object, like a real thing? Something that was a real object in real life?
I did.
No? You did? Okay, what'd you get?
I mean, it kept changing. But
Yeah.
I got like a marble or like a dodgeball ball or one of the planets.
Did anybody get an apple? No. So, Bree, I have to tell you something. Wait a minute. Did anybody get an apple? I'm swiping. No. Bree, I have to tell you something really funny. When I wrote this, my intention was for the apple. As I was writing it, all I could see, smell, hear was a dodgeball. As I was writing this description. So if you got dodgeball, you're not wrong. You're very right. Okay. I could hear it. You remember that gym sound of getting smacked with a red dodgeball? I could see the texture of it. I could smell it, that rubber smell. And I was like, well, this is interesting because I'm looking at an apple, trying to write about an apple. But all I could get in my mind was a dodgeball. And I asked my kids, because we have a red like kickball, whatever. I was like, where? They said, we left it at Papa's. So I was super disappointed because I had every intention of changing it to the dodgeball for this purpose. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll stick with the apple then. But so if you got like a ball, then you're right. And it's okay if you didn't get the apple. You had a red circle like going around you? Wow, that's cool.
It was like above my head.
So that's okay. Like, so that's, yeah. So the thing that I want to point out is that I asked you to tap into me because I thought it might help since I had the object there, right? Like sometimes it helps you to tap into the person. So you know that you're tapping into me because I'm thinking of the object and looking at it. But what happens is sometimes, especially in this new scenario, we almost put right, Lisa, you know this, we put too much pressure on ourselves. Oh, so then we create this whole like story, this whole scene, this whole big thing about what I must have been thinking about, rather than just allowing it to flow, rather than just surrendering, right? So that to me is actually okay, because what I want to be clear about is that practicing your clairs does not always mean reading and connecting. Okay. You don't have to be doing psychic work to strengthen your clairs. You can strengthen your clairs by doing something very normal. So picturing you know what I mean? Like building that in your mind, whether you got what I did or not, was an exercise in strengthening your clairvoyance, taking those moments to like build it piece by piece. Now, if you found that really challenging, if you found it really hard to even like see red in your mind or build a ball in your mind, that probably means that your clairvoyance is not one of your strongest senses. So then you have the choice to either work on it, continue to work on it, right? And try to like encourage it to get better. Or, you know, that's okay too. Like if it never feels like it comes together for you, people get so frustrated when they feel like they don't see things. And it's okay. Not everybody has to experience this stuff the same way. There are plenty of other ways to experience communication from spirit. I happen to be someone who's very into music and musically inclined. So all this stuff really kind of like resonates with me. I love to do clairaudience practice with music. If music isn't really your thing and like, you're like, I don't know what instrument that is, they all sound the same to me. Try something else. Try something else that you're familiar with. But recreating things in your imagination or isolating sounds, anything that really like stretches and flexes your hearing is really, really good for your clairaudience. And I don't necessarily even mean your physical hearing, right? Because I actually don't have great, my husband says I went to too many concerts. I don't have fantastic hearing. I'm like, I have to listen to my music at full insane volume and like, I don't know, but I'm very clairaudient, like very clairaudient. Okay, Sam, that's fine. I'll send you the replay. Okay, so now we're gonna try one of the ones I actually spoke very briefly about before. I want you to close your eyes, put your hands on your heart, and I want you to picture one of your past loved ones, someone that you love deeply, someone that you miss. If you don't have one, you could picture, or you could ask for your spirit guide. You could picture someone you love in real life and also ask for your spirit guide. But for the sake of this, I would say try to go with a past loved one if you have one. And I want you to take a second and just breathe long and slow. I'm going to stop talking for a second and let you sort of put your hands on your heart space. And I want you to imagine them and feel into how much you love them. Feel into how much you felt they loved you. And now what you can do is ask them to reach out and touch you and see if it does anything for you. See if it brings you any kind of new sensations and awareness in your physical body. Did anyone get anything that they want to share? Now, I will say that this is kind of a situation where we're putting you on the spot, right? So if you didn't get anything in this current situation, that's okay. I would encourage you to try that one on your own. That's kind of like a private, loving thing. But does anyone want to share? Did you have an experience?
So it felt like my mom had her, like a heaviness on my cheek almost, like not a vibrating, but just a heaviness right on my cheek.
I wonder if maybe she was leaning into you like that, or maybe she put her hand on your cheek. That's
it almost
Anyone
felt
else?
like someone was rubbing like this.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Jamie.
Lisa, I think you had one, and maybe Chrissy. Yeah. Chrissy, go
I
ahead.
asked my sister, and I started to feel really warm, and my heart just started pumping like really fast.
Oh.
And I got real emotional.
That, like, that was probably her physical presence.
Okay.
That's, I would say that's probably physical presence of spirit is probably what that was. Good for you. Good.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Lisa, did you too?
So I didn't have anything right at this time, but in the beginning, when you said that you were open, that's when I got like the tightness in the chest, and I couldn't remember if it was your grandma or Robin, but there was like someone that it was super, yeah. So it took me a while to be like, okay, I got it. Good.
So. Thank you. I love you. And I love you for like, you know, my spirits even. You're so funny. I love it. Okay. That is one of my favorite things to do, right? When I'm feeling heavy, I'll call on one of my loved ones and be like, can you just sit with me? Can you just sit with me? Can you just touch me so I know you're around? And especially when I'm feeling like, sometimes there's been times where I felt like I haven't seen or noticed my grandmother around in a while. And I'll say like, no, this is unacceptable. I need to know you're around like all the time. Thank you. Please send me signs. Send me signs. I need you. I just need to know that you're around, you know? So you can really sit with your loved ones. They can come and be with you. They can come and sit with you and take a moment with you, and you can feel them and you can talk to them. That's, to me, to be honest with you, what we just practiced, what just happened, that's what this is all about. That's the most important part of this. Whether it's connecting with your own past loved ones, whether you're connecting with your own past loved ones or, you know, it's your own spirit guide stuff, whatever. It's just this realization that you are capable of doing this and bringing this peace and this joy and this clarity to yourself. We're all born with this. Only some people will feel drawn enough to sort of pursue it or continue it. And I don't mean by this, I don't necessarily mean mediumship, but I mean that given gift of connection. We're meant to be connected to each other and to the universe, and to allow these things greater and outside of ourselves to sort of soak into us and be with us and be loving, guiding presences for us. And so we talk about the clairs, like, you know, I'm like, it's going to be a fun workshop. And now we're all over here crying. We talk about the clairs like they're, you know, it's like this fun, cool thing, like, ooh, clairvoyance, I can see things. But at the end of the day, the importance is really like how you feel and what you do with it and how it makes you feel and how it helps you, you know? Oh, that was a good little activity. I like that. Okay. Now I have just kind of like a fun little game, right? This is sort of putting it together. And I don't want you to worry if you're wrong. It's not a big deal. Remember that you're just starting, some of you, that you're just practicing, that this is new. And so before I tell you anything, I will tell you that I have some little flashcards with vehicles on them. I have chosen one of them. This is a vehicle that people use. So it's like a regular, normal vehicle. I didn't send you like it's not a rocket ship or anything weird. It's a normal vehicle that real life people use. And I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to be looking intently at the card. I'm looking right now at the card. I'm paying attention to the colors and what I observe and what is physically on the card. So I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath for a minute. And I want you to slowly sort of go through your senses, okay? I don't want you to just guess what the vehicle is. Don't just go like, let me guess. I want you to go through your senses, and I want you to ask yourself, what do I feel? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I know? Just go through your senses and kind of ask yourself before you land on what vehicle you think I have. And I don't want you to discount anything either. If you see a color, fine. If you see a word or hear a word in your mind, fine. Okay, you guys ready? Does anyone feel brave enough to like make a guess, or you want me to just show you and then you can tell me if you were right or not? It's hard to guess these things. This is pretty like, that's a pretty random thing. I don't like being put on the spot like that either. So don't feel bad if nobody wants to guess. Okay, you guys ready? Did anybody get a bike? No, you're laughing. You guys are laughing. To be fair, I do. No, nobody did, right? So it was a little bit tricky. Like I wanted it to be one that wasn't going to be like a car, super obvious, right? Did anybody see green is there anything on this? Yeah. Okay. It's funny because I thought that the green really stood out. And that's specifically why I even asked you to consider what colors you saw or what, because I thought like it was very vibrant. Also, I want to show you the scene that's on, you saw a green trash truck. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're not, it's green, so you're part right. And that's like that bright green of those big green trash trucks. And then I just want to show you, in case anybody got anything that was like related to the back of the card, I just wanted to show you the back of the card too. It's a bicycle out of park. I don't know. I got kids. These are my kids' things. So I don't know. All right. So I'm going to do one more of these. But I'm going to show you first before I pick it. Okay. But I wanted you to try that without seeing them first. So here are the other cards. We have airplane, submarine, fire truck. I'll just stick to those. We'll keep it simple. There's a bunch more. Okay, I'm shuffling them. I don't know what I'm going to pull either. I'm not thinking about it. My mind is clear. I have no idea. All right, I pulled one. Close your eyes and do the same thing. If you need to, if you want to. Okay, your choices were airplane, submarine, fire truck. Raise your hand if you think, or whatever, if you think it's the airplane. Raise your hand or whatever if you think it's the submarine. Raise your hand if you think it's the fire truck. Okay. So I think it's important to note too, like,
I got it. I heard it.
I want to say these little games.
I heard it. I saw it.
Oh my gosh, how funny. Yeah. So those of you who got it right, tell me how you knew.
I don't know. It just popped into my head.
Tell me how you knew if you got it right. You heard it.
I heard it. Yeah.
Cool.
So I got it when we were doing the bike.
Where they didn't hear it. Oh, really?
And then I was like, oh, when you showed the three, I was like, oh, then that's where the fire truck's coming from then. Like I just.
Oh my God, really? See, good job. But could you think of anything, like, was there anything that happened that made you, or it just was like a no, like you just knew?
I like when I first pictured it, when you were doing the bike, like I got the color red, I could hear the siren. Like I just kept hearing a siren.
Oh, funny. Oh, you're saying, I get what you're saying. You saw the fire truck when I did the bike.
Yeah.
I want to be honest with you. And I want to tell you that before I picked the bike, when I was like writing this, I actually picked the fire truck and I changed it. Because I don't know why, but I did. And then the fire truck pulled anyway. I think the universe was like, you can't change your mind on these things, right? So maybe that's part of that too, right? Okay, so I have two more things for you, and then we'll be done for the evening. And then on Saturday, I will send you the replay and the practice stuff for you to practice on your own. It'll have some of these like suggestions as well as like a few more, and also the guided meditation for you to continue to practice. So for the last couple, All right, everybody kind of clear that, sort of shake away your like, whatever, kind of like, you know, do whatever you need to sort of clear it. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Connect with me again. Connect into me. I give you permission to connect into me psychically or to my past loved ones or whatever you need to do. And I want to tell you that I am holding something in my lap that is of no real importance in the world, but it is extremely important to me. It belonged to a past loved one, and I have it and I cherish it. And rather than guess what it is, if anyone feels brave enough to share, I would encourage you to tell me what it is you're experiencing. So don't tell me what you think the object is. Tell me why you think that. And Lisa, it's not jewelry. I've done this exercise before with jewelry, just so you know, it's not jewelry.
I was like, how did you know that I was gonna?
No, it's because I've done this before.
I
picked something different.
Warm and soft.
Okay.
Like textile.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong yet.
Okay.
So thank you for being brave enough.
I just keep thinking about leather.
Leather. Okay. What else?
Color pink. I keep thinking of color pink.
Okay. All right, you ready? It's my grandfather's shirt. And I do think there's like there might be a little bit of leather on it somewhere. The buttons or something. It's got weird buttons.
Is it made of wool? I kept smelling wool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a woolly flannel. Yeah. It's like a flannel. And it's very soft. I wear it when it's cold. It's like my house coat. I wear it all the time. All the time.
I just kept feeling
when I want
like
to feel
very
closer to him
manly.
and when I'm cold.
It felt like manly
Yeah.
in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, you know what? It smelled like him for a long time too. It doesn't anymore because I wear it constantly. It smells like me. But yeah.
Same.
Good job,
I
you guys.
couldn't tell what the item was, but I did feel that it was that of a man's item.
Oh, good. Good. Good job. Okay. Lisa, you psyched yourself out because you thought it was my grandmother's jewelry. I knew it. I could tell. Yeah. And then when I said it's not jewelry, Lisa, you shut down. It was over.
I was like,
it was over.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm out on this one. Yeah. I think though you weren't surprised when I pulled this up, were you? You were like, oh, that makes sense. You knew.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I was way off.
Well, you weren't because that would have been something that I would have done, right? So that's like a knowing me thing. No, I've done my grandmother's jewelry before, so I chose something
circular, like
the
that's
pin.
what I thought it was. Yeah,
the pin. Yeah. Okay, so last activity. Here's what I would like you to do. This was my grandfather's shirt. I called him Papa, but his name is Wilbur. Will. He is amazing. He's loving. He's gentle. He's sweet. He's like the greatest spirit ever. So what I would encourage you to do, I'm going to show you his picture. I happen to have it on my desk. So I'll show you this little picture. That's me and my papa eating. We're having a snack together. He's the literal cutest. Deceased, obviously. And what I would encourage you to do is try to take a moment again. Let's all take a deep breath, kind of take a second. Now, I'm not going to force anybody to be giving mediumship readings or anything like that. This is for the purpose of your clairs. So everybody relax, nobody panic. Take a second and sort of call to him. Do it in your own way. I'm not going to say it out loud for you. Call to him and just sort of invite him to help you with this. He would love this. So don't you feel bad about bothering him or anything. He's eating it up. I can feel it. Take a second, kind of call to him, ask him to come around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the clairs and we're going to talk about it. Okay. So let's start with clairvoyance. So rather than like worrying about giving me messages or anything, just think about when you think about my papa, or when you call to my papa, Wilbur, what do you see? What's happening in your mind? Are there any visions that are coming forward for you? Any colors or items or anything at all? And if you feel brave enough to volunteer your what you're getting, you can. Go ahead. I will tell you with this, I can't tell you if you're right or wrong unless you tell me what you're thinking. So yes, unless you try, right?
I don't know why.
Did I dance on his?
I keep thinking about overalls. I don't know why.
It's cute. That's cute. I do think he had a pair that he used to wear when he would garden and stuff. I do think he had a pair. Lisa, I forget. I didn't see what you said in like the chat. What did you say, Lisa?
I've seen you guys like dancing in the kitchen, like you're like dancing on his toes.
Yep. Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know, like that's, you know. Mm-hmm. And like, did he have like a favorite candy? Did he give you candy?
Yeah, we always had candy or treats around. I don't know if he had a favorite. There was always mounds in the house because they were actually my grandmother's favorite, but he always had cookies and treats and sweets and stuff. Yeah. What'd you say, Chrissy? What were you going to say? What were you seeing?
I was seeing like a truck and like tools. I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't have a truck, but he had tools, like all the tools.
Like old tools?
Yeah, like he bought them at the turn of the century and they were still good. So why would we ever need to upgrade them? Yes. Good job, you guys. Okay. All right. So let's kind of connect back into it again. And now, ask him if he wants to tell you anything. Ask him if there's anything that he wants to say, or you can also just listen for any sounds you feel that might be associated with him. I even just got one myself that I didn't expect to get. Interesting. Anyone want to share? This is one of those ones that I think is challenging because you doubt yourself because it's hard to tell if it's your thought or not. Yeah. What do you think, Lisa? What were you hearing?
So I'm not great with hearing. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. So I saw it's like one of those really old typewriters, and you know, I'm a lot older than a lot of you guys, but when at the end of TV shows, they used to show this typewriter with somebody like pulling a piece of paper out of it, and it was like Cagney and Lacey and Dukes of Hazzard. It was like all these like Murder, She Wrote kind of shows that had it. So seeing a typewriter, I was seeing that particular thing after a TV show, which why would I think of that?
I don't know. That's funny. But I do
Lucky.
think he had a typewriter. I do think he had a typewriter.
Brown ones, like the old ones, like my parents.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I have a picture of him hanging over here. I can't take it down, but hanging over here that's of him in his office in like the 70s.
That's kind of, yeah. And he kept in like Lovey. He was saying Lovey.
Aww. Cute. He's cute. A sound that I heard while I was doing it myself was my grandmother's wind chimes, which is funny because that had nothing to do with him, but well, he loved my grandmother, I guess, but I have them now. So I think maybe he was just trying to acknowledge that he knows that they're here, right? Anyone want to share anything else that they thought they heard? No? Okay. All right, so then let's like dial it in again for a sec. Let's connect now with the feeling. So maybe you have physical sensations. You could ask how he died. You could ask for some physical sensations like that. You can ask for emotional sensations, if there's anything I should know on that front, or if there's anything that he wants to show you on that front. So emotional sensations and physical sensations. And you're not going to offend me if you say anything, so don't worry about that. Thank you, Wendy. We're almost done. Sorry, it's so late. We're done. This is the last. I get 2 more. Does anyone want to share anything that they were getting?
Does it have something to do with him breathing? His, like I felt a heaviness in my chest.
Yeah. Hold on. Who's saying that? I can't find you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah. So he passed. I was the only one by his side for 4 days when he died. And I was constantly watching his chest rise and fall, and his, as people are dying, their breathing becomes irregular. And so every time he would like, and then stop, I would be like, oh God, this is it. So yes, I very much associate that memory. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I felt like my heart was like a very, like how you explained it, like very like a controlled beating, because I did ask Papa how he passed is what I asked, and I felt like a very controlled of my heart. And then when you said, it might be me, so I was like, well, maybe that's me, maybe it's me. I just felt very dizzy and just like weak. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So he died on hospice. It was like a long, slow, just sort of falling asleep decline. But he had dementia before that, so did anyone get anything with that? Any sort of confused feelings. I'll tell you too, another sort of emotional feeling that I was feeling attached to it was funny. It came through really strong. The first feeling, the reason I said, don't, say whatever you want, you're not going to offend me, was because the very first feeling that I got was actually concern for my dad, was worry about my dad. My dad's a pain in the butt. So he was like worried about him. That was the very first feeling that I got myself. Which is why I said, say whatever you want, you're not going to offend me. All right, good job. And then, so what was that? That was, you don't have to do like smell or taste, but you can just take 1 more second now, smell, taste, or anything that take 1 last second and connect in with him and ask if there's any last things that he wants to show you or give you or help you experience. I know I already said that I get tomato plants a lot with him. So see if he has anything else that he wants to share. And I just got a new one too, so I'll share that with you after. Anyone want to share one last time? I will tell you, you guys can tell me if anybody got something similar. The very first thing that I got the second I sort of asked him was like an overwhelming sensation of my grandmother's apple pie. Which is funny because, again, it's not associated with him. It's my grandmother's, you know, but he sure liked to eat them. That's for sure.
So I don't think this has to do with your dad, but there's something going on with like throat. So I don't know if that was him when he was passing or now, because you said it was about like, I don't know, but there's definitely something going on right here.
So I think that dementia causes some throat chakra issues, first of all. So that could be it. I don't know exactly what it is, but I won't say it's a no because I can see that it's possible. Yeah, my throat kind of hurts. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else they want to share, then I guess that's it. That concludes our evening. Does anyone have any questions before I let you go? I'm going to send you the packet so you guys can continue to practice this stuff some more. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can apply this, right? We can apply this to everywhere in our life. Like I sometimes will even be like, which way should I drive home today? Which way is going to have less traffic? And just decide. See if Claire want to tell me the answer. You know what I mean? You can really put this into all kind of practical use. It's great for you if you want to sort of read your own cards, pull some cards for yourself to help you understand what they mean without having to look them up and go word for word the definition, right? You intuitively can read the cards. It's great for you if you want to connect with your own spirit guides so that it can help you understand them better. And the more you strengthen it, the easier it will be. Yay. All right, you guys did a great job. Thank you for being willing to try this with me. I know it can be a little intimidating to like practice this stuff in front of a room full of strangers. So you all did a great job. I'm proud of all of you. Please, after I send you the stuff, I can't do it tomorrow because I will be out all day tomorrow. I'm away tomorrow. So I'm going to do it on Saturday. It also sometimes takes forever to upload. So thank you for your patience, especially because this is going to be a long one. Okay. So yeah, if nobody has anything else, then I'll see you when I see you. Please stay in touch. Let me know how your practice goes and keep in touch. Oh my gosh. I forgot that I was supposed to say something at the beginning of this. I will put it in an email. For everyone that took this tonight, if you would like to continue on and do the 6-week mediumship foundations course that I'm doing in the fall, please do not sign up for it on the website that I have linked in my bio. Please send me a message because I will take the price of this class off of it and you can have this class for free. Okay? So I will send that in an email as well so that I can make sure everybody sees that. And yeah, you guys know where to find me if you need anything or if you need any help. Great job, everybody. We'll chat soon, okay? Take care. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.